and welcome to the TTS Talking Exploring Early Years Resources webinar. During this session, we will be showcasing a selected number of TTS developed resources and exploring how these can be used across all areas of learning within the early years. My name is Olivia Kirkby. I'm the Early Years Education Consultant here at TTS, and I'm joined by Product Design Specialist Jed Brown. Together we will be demonstrating a selected number of TTS developed resources and seeing how these can provide enriching learning opportunities and develop key skills.
Please do get involved by sharing your thoughts and questions in the webinar chat box, and we'll do our best to answer while the webinar takes place. TTS are also going to be sharing some follow-up content with further guidance and inspiration on all the resources we've talked about here today. Plus, we'll share the answers to any of the questions that we may not get a chance to answer directly. Thank you for joining us.
First of all, we are going to introduce you to our Glow and Go TTS robot.
So Go and Glowbot came about when we were looking at our existing programming journey of robots. And we know that they're really important for teaching children the educational skills they'll need to thrive in an environment where programming and robotics are becoming far more commonplace. But at the time, the first robot in that journey was Bebot. And Bebot is a 3+ product, and it's not really designed for an early years environment. So we really wanted to see if we can make a robot that's, it's not about programming per se, but it's teaching the fundamentals and the building blocks in a way that will get them ready for those products when they use them later in their education, and really make it an engaging, exciting product that would be suitable for early years. So that's sort of where Go and Glowbot began. What's great about this product is how many different ways you can use it in your early years setting. You could use it for arts and crafts, like creating houses or tunnels for Go and Glowbot to explore or go through. You could also use it with mirrored products that will reflect the light in either a regular setting or a dark environment. And the most unique thing about this robot is the literal movement. So it probably seems quite obvious to us that with something like Bebot, if you want it to move left, it's going to have to turn left first. But to a younger mind, that's a little bit more complicated. And what's actually happened in that situation is this arrow that was once facing forward in relation to me, that's now going to be facing left in relation to me. What's different about Go and Glowbot is wherever you're positioned around the robot, it will always move in whatever direction you press. So I remember when I first started, the whole team was spending a lot of time working on this. It took us quite a while to figure out the mechanism inside that was going to actually let the robot move in this way. And everyone sort of chipped in. We all had to have a bit of a brainstorming session about how we're going to figure this out. But I think it's worth it because this has made it so much more unique than the other robots that are out there on the market or even in our own programming range.
For the programming range, this is why it's fantastic for all age groups within the early years setting. So you can have mode 1, which will be perfect for that 10-month plus range for children, and they are beginning to learn that mathematical language, the sequencing and coding. So by introducing the arrows and being able to program the robot to move in certain directions, children are learning those sequencing and instructions. And with the sensory elements, with the lights and the dancing, it just makes it so much more of an engaging and motivating item for the children to want to play with.
And so, Olivia, you just touched on the kind of the sequence and the programming that you can build in. So that's another really nice feature about this robot, is that it actually comes with 3 modes. So while we're talking about this being great as an introductory product to resources they might use later in their education, the product itself actually has learning and development through the different modes. So on the base, there's a switch that can change between the modes. So mode 1 is really about that cause and effect and exploring directional movement. So you'll see that if you press the button, the robot will instantly move in that direction. So it's a 1 press, cause and effect. But then what you can actually do is you can then move this on to mode 2, and in mode 2 you can start to build up programs like you're referring to and start to create sequences. So it actually adds an extra level of education and complexity in the robot itself.
And one of my favourite examples of using this is actually to have 2x2 together. So then the children are really collaborating and combining their thoughts together in teamwork to then have the 2 robots working in sequence. And we actually created an incredible dance with the robots, and both of them were having the same instructions and moving the same way, and then the children were following. So not only are they learning that technology, the language, communication skills, it's also bringing in physical development as well, because the children were dancing along with their robots.
You can use multiple glows in sequence, synchronising the movements. Children can work in collaboration to programme all glows. The children can choreograph a dance and instruct the glows to follow the moves and instructions in unison.
Another way to tie into that is in mode 3. So if you change the robot to the third mode on here, it'll actually move out the movement functions of the robot, but it'll keep the lights and the sounds on the robot. So what that means is that for even younger children, where maybe they can't actually get up and follow the robot around, they can still play and engage with the product and just enjoy the sensory appeal, which is the lights, the sounds, and also the fact that all of these bright coloured buttons have got a unique texture for each directional arrow.
Glow in a darkened or sensory room adds another element of awe and wonder as it magically glows, engaging the children further.
Yeah, and that's another really nice design feature about this is we've got this really nice faceted pattern that you may not be able to see on the camera, but it shows up great in a dark room. So as the robot moves, the feet will light up and they'll glow, and the faceted pattern on there will actually reflect across the surface. So as you said, really great in a dark room or on a mirrored surface, and actually seeing it interact with other products like the iridescent range or the radiant range, seeing how that light and colour bounces off those products is really great too.
And of course, it's completely cross-curricular, which is something that we are passionate about at TTS, in ensuring that all of those areas of the EYFS can be used within one product. And you think you're bringing in technology, the children's language, physical development. There are so many different areas that this can go into. And by using this one item, it really can enhance every area of the continuous provision.
Yeah, and I know the team that were developing this put a lot of time into making sure that this robot would appeal on a number of levels. As you said, there's the sensory, there's that sort of building blocks of programming and sequencing, exploring pattern recognition, all of those things. And on top of that, it's just a really fun character. So children who are going into their nursery environment can just see this bright, colourful thing that's on the floor, and it just encourages them to get involved and experiment, press these big chunky buttons. They're really easy to interact with. And it just encourages all of those great skills.
And that's a key part of it, isn't it? The children are having fun, but actually there is so much learning that is taking place that the children aren't even aware that they are programming and they are using technology, and they're bringing all of these fantastic key skills in, but ultimately they're just having fun in a fantastic play-based environment. And now we are going to explore our sensory illuminated mark making boards.
So these boards come as a set of 4 with a really nice docking station that's great and easy to use. They've been designed with these nice guides on the back so they locate really easily. So that means that you don't have to worry about taking batteries in or out, you just simply redock it when you need to. The design of them has also got this really nice chunky border on them because they're easy to grip and pick up and move around. The other thing is that all the technology inside is really slim and minimalist. So the boards themselves are very lightweight and easy to pick up. There's a switch on the base here, and what this then lets you do is you can flip between different colours. So there's 7 different colours, and then there's another mode that lets you change between each colour, so it can actually be changing while children are interacting with the product.
This is one of my favourite resources for really developing those mark making skills. So mark making is fluid across all areas of the continuous provision. However, it is amazing that when you add light to mark making, how much more engaging that is for the children. This can follow any theme across early years. Have it in the role play area for the cafe, you can highlight a menu on it, the children can take it outside, they can take it again in the sensory area because it has the illuminated and glow effect. When this is in a darkened room, it really does stand out, and developing those key skills and the mark making, adding the glow element to it and having it wipeable for the children to just be able to mark make over and over and over, and it shine up in all of the different colours, really is engaging and motivating for children.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's really great that it encouraged reluctant children to use it. I know when I was a kid, I was always like drawing on things and ended up in a design profession. It's being able to do that sort of led me here, and I think it's great that we've got something that's encouraging people or children who maybe wouldn't naturally want to do that, to actually get involved and start drawing and mark making.
It's amazing when something glows up and you add light to it, the motivation and engagement that you see from children, like you said, those reluctant learners, adding this to their mark making, suddenly they're not reluctant anymore.
So one other great thing about the colour changing aspect is that children can experiment with how the different colours actually changes the drawings, designs or creations that they've made on the boards. Also the light up is really great in sensory environments with some of our other glow resources or even things like the Go and Glow bot.
And the learning and language opportunities truly are endless with this product. And for the mark making, which is of course the first step, for that to lead on to letter formation and then phonics, you can use it in a group activity where the practitioner is writing a story and all of the children are being involved in adding aspects to those letters and building that story up. Another really lovely example that I love with this is a treasure hunt. Because there's 4 boards, you can write clues and then the children have to go to the boards to then figure out the clues to then find the treasure at the end. And again, with all of our products, we are passionate about them being cross-curricular. And this board, whilst it is a mark-making board, it is fluid across every area of the continuous provision, and children will take it, as we all know, and explore their interests, and this could end up in every area of their imagination and creativity.
Yeah, it could absolutely be used for maths, for literacy, like you said about creating steps and tying into the programming resources we've got. It can be used for all sorts. And now we're going to talk about our recordable talking pegs.
The recordable talking pegs can be so versatile and again completely cross-curricular because you can use them in every area of the continuous provision. Of course, fantastic for den building and fine motor skills, but also that language embedding and recognition. One of my favourite examples of using these would be for children that are starting in the nursery, settling in, attachment. This really does lend itself well to those new children starting. We had pictures of the families on a board, and then every family member recorded a lovely 10-second message to their child just to let them know that they are okay, they will see them soon, and they hope they have a great day. And actually the children being able to hear that really supported them through those first days at nursery.
So the design of these pegs is really nice as well. They're nice and chunky and easy to use. They've got nice soft rounded edges. In terms of the function, it's very straightforward. There's a switch on the side which lets you change to record mode. You press once to record your message, and you can record for up to 10 seconds. Press again to save. Then you can flick down to the play mode, and when you activate the button, your message should play.
I also find these are really useful for practitioners as well, especially when they're planning some adult-led activities or trying to engage the children in some of their learning, to be able for the practitioners to record instructions for the children to then follow, such as a treasure hunt in the garden. You could peg these and have different clues and instructions that children would then have to follow.
What's another good thing about the design here is that obviously there's the peg on this end, which means that you could clip boards or paper or drawing into that side. There's also a hole on the back, meaning that you can hook these onto the wall or line them all up on a long line over the ceiling, or just attach them to other resources around the room.
And children's artwork as well, being able to pin up their artwork, and then the practitioners being able to leave feedback messages. So when children come in the next day, their masterpieces are exhibited on the wall, and then there's lovely messages from the practitioners really describing how fantastic the children have done on those masterpieces.
Yeah, and the children could even leave their own messages, so they can attach their artwork and record a message to tell a story about what they've drawn or why they've drawn it, or describe a character that they've created or anything like that.
Which works well with confidence as well. Sometimes children might not be confident to explain the process of their artwork or any area of their learning, but actually being able to do that independently and record their thoughts and feelings and then still be able to share that is another fantastic aspect of it.
Yeah, and they could be used for teaching about reading as well. You could attach a word to a picture below the peg and get children to record what it is they're seeing into the peg, and then teachers can go around and check that recording afterwards.
And those phonic sounds as well, they would also be really useful for those first stages of phonics. And animals, another lovely example that I love of this is pinning up the different animals and then recording the animal sound, so then the children can identify the animal sound and then put the correct picture on the right peg.
These have been designed to be safe for use of 3+. So all of the products we make, they're toy tested. So that means that we've checked things like the clips on the end are going to be firm enough to hold what they need to, but they're not going to cause any damage. It means there's no small parts, no risks for the children who are going to be using them.
And now we are going to look at the Alice Sharp Eco Build World.
Eco Build World came about through our innovations teams working very closely with Alice Sharp. What we wanted to do was make a product that would introduce construction, maths, creativity, manipulatives, but make it in a way that was a really open-ended resource.
And it's so versatile as well. It really does lend itself brilliantly to every area of the continuous provision. And loose parts play. You've got construction, loose parts, imagination, creativity, the fine and gross motor skills. It really is a versatile item which can be used across the whole of the nursery.
During the development of this product, it came about at a time when our team was really starting to put a lot of work into looking at more sustainable material options. Whenever we're designing a new product, we're always trying to make sure we select the best material for that product. And wherever possible, we'll try and make that a sustainable choice if we can. With this product, because of the relatively simple geometry of the tubes themselves, it actually let us use a material that we've not had a chance to use before, which is a wood pulp. So what that means is it's actually a mixture between wood shavings that are often actually waste wood and mix that into a plastic resin. So what that's doing is it's reducing the amount of raw plastic and therefore meaning that you're taking less of that from the environment. The other material here is bamboo. What's great about bamboo is that it's a really strong material, so it's great for being in nursery environments where it might get a bit of a knock around. But also bamboo is a really fast growing crop. So when we're talking about sustainability, we're trying to find materials that are renewable. So that means that they're going to grow back and replenish higher than the rate that we're using them. Because bamboo grows so quickly, it makes it great for sustainable options.
And what a fantastic talking point to educate the children on that eco and sustainability as well, when they're engaged and playing with this resource, to be able to describe what the materials are and how this has been created, I think is really educational for children to learn.
Yeah, it's great for them to be able to actually use eco materials in the classroom, be using materials that they may have not seen before. I think it also just adds to the design of it. The kind of natural texture and feel that you get from it comes from the material selection itself, and that just adds another appeal to the product.
It can be a frozen palace, it can be an astronaut station, and the children can really collaborate and work together when they're building these. It can be used independently or as a team.
Yeah, I know while we were developing this, we went through a lot of prototypes and samples to make sure that we got the design right. And there was a lot of the team getting really involved to make sure this was right. So we tested it out by trying to make some worlds of our own. I remember spending a day trying to build this huge forest landscape. We had people turning it into castles, like you said, spaceships. And what's great about that is that you can then actually tie in the things like arts and crafts to the product as well. So by drawing and making little houses or dragons for the castles that you've built. So it adds a real creativity to the product. As well as that, while they're building these worlds, there's actually quite a good maths element to it. So instead of thinking about things like 100 mil plus 10 mil, they're starting to think about things like tube plus spacer equals tube plus platform. So you can construct this in a number of ways, and if you use it without the spacers, you can still build whatever you want. But as they begin to explore and try out different patterns, they might realise, okay, that platform looks a bit wonky, what could I do differently to make that level? And that's where these spacers come in. So all the holes on the platforms, and there's a number of different platform shapes and sizes, they're all designed to fit the tubes. The tubes themselves have got a really nice, easy screw thread design, and I know the team spent a lot of time making sure that this would be easy to use for young learners, but also really nice and secure, so when you're actually building these worlds, and they're in environments where kids are playing and moving around, they're nice and secure.
And fantastic for the fine motor skills as well, isn't it? The design of these. And as you say, there can be so many creations made of these, and watching children really explore and collaborate, not only is that mathematical element coming into it, but the language development itself, to be hearing children really talk to each other and discuss how they're going to build, and trial and error, like you said. Sometimes a platform might work and the children will need to then reanalyse how to build it again to make sure that it's a suitable structure.
Yeah, and like you said, the collaborative element is really great. The kit comes with over 80 parts, and because they all work together, you can buy additional kits and then expand the world even more. They also work really well with our Eco Small World ladders. So these are made from the same wood pulp, and we also have a set of eco houses as well that can be used with Build a World for when you're creating forest environments or castles or landscapes.
And it can be extended with anything. Junk modelling in the corner that most nurseries have, other loose parts, other parts of construction. You can really add any resource or any independent find that the children have in the garden. I've seen grass come into it before, rocks, anything that they can find, they can then add onto the build world.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about this being so open-ended, is that while it works with other bits of our resource, you can also just use other objects around your nursery or setting to expand this. Whatever the children find that engages and excites them, they can just add that into the Build a World. So really it's kind of whatever they can imagine. So we've talked a lot about the different ways that this involves maths and construction, creativity and art, and all those things together is what makes this such a great STEAM product. Because rather than teaching all of those aspects separately, it's bringing them together into one resource that children can explore all of those learnings at the same time, and as well they can do that collaboratively with each other at the same time.
And as you said, we've spoken about the different areas of learning with this resource, but of course the emotional and wellbeing and regulation aspect is really important. Children create from the world that they see, and actually giving them a tool to be able to create their home life or their nursery setting and then build on top of that, especially if this is used independently. I've seen it be a really great resource for children who need that self-regulation and the emotional connection to their creativity. Next, we will be looking at the STEAM Discovery Centre.
So our innovations team work really hard to make sure that when we're developing a range like the Glow range, that the products interact together. So what that means is that all of these products have great function and appeal on their own, but then that takes it to another level when you can actually use them together. So the holes in the bricks have been designed to fit around the cylinders, and the balls will also stack on there as well. So when it came to looking at the Discovery STEAM Centre, we wanted to take that the next step further. So what that meant is we wanted to make something that could combine all of these Glow products, but also be really open-ended so you could use it with other resources in the setting as well.
And of course you could use it with wooden cylinders, wooden balls, tennis balls, foam balls, anything that you have within the setting, couldn't you? And even other ideas like water, gloop, messy play, mark making, it really is versatile that you could use any of those items with it.
So the product itself has holes in the side. The holes will fit the cylinders. As Olivia said, you can use other things like the wooden cylinders as well. What this means is that you can actually create a path to obstruct objects as they fall through it. So children can experiment by creating different like ball runs and puzzles and see how the spheres would move throughout there by taking the cylinders in and out. The large sort of levering element on the top has been designed to fit the bricks so they can stack there. The light up links will also work with this product. You could also attach buckets to either end and experiment with weight, adding different weights to either side and seeing how the product moves.
And then if you're thinking about the language and the mathematical language that will follow when children are interacting with this is really going to be interesting when they're using that cause and effect and finding which cylinders make the ball go.
And because we knew that we wanted this to work so well with our Glow range, we've made it out of a clear acrylic. So it looks really great in a dark or sensory environment where you've got the lights and the colours. You can actually see how the light up spheres, when they're illuminated, you can see that pass through the internal mechanism of the STEAM Centre, which is really great. So it just takes on that other level when it's being used with Glow products.
And the cause and effect, children really can see that, can't they? When they're using the different cylinders, they're adding different elements to the STEAM Centre, whether that be different resources or simple water and buckets to get that way. The language is continuously growing along with their playing.
The product's been designed to be flat packed as well, so not only does it make it slightly easier for us to ship it out to you, but it also means that you can store the product away. Because this product itself has actually got quite a large form factor.
And it being large really lends itself well to that group activity, children collaboratively working together, and how fantastic that they can communicate and work out that cause and effect of how to make their masterpiece using the cylinders, the balls, or whichever items they wish to bring to this resource.
And that collaboration is going to help with language skills as well, because of the size of it, the top pivoting part, you might have a child using one end and another child on the other end, and they can be communicating and saying, what happens if you put another sphere or cylinder? So it's going to build that language skill as well while they're collaborating.
And they're really critically thinking together as well, aren't they? But then you're also bringing in physical development because it's a large product. They're having to use their gross motor skills and also their fine motor skills. So there's a lot of different areas of the curriculum coming into this one resource, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a fantastic STEAM resource really, because on one aspect it's got a huge creative amount to it. You can be creating light up sculptures with all the Glow resources that are in there, but there's also mathematical elements, there's the science elements of what happens to the weight. You can add buckets to one side and observe the difference of adding or taking away weight from different sides.
During this session, we'll be showcasing some fantastic TTS developed resources, explaining how these can be used in the early years and how these can support children's skills and development. My name is Camilla Jarwood Rogers, and I'm the Early Years Innovation Manager here for TTS. In this section of the webinar, we'll be looking at some early years outdoor resources and how we can use these and implement these into our outdoor settings. Our first resource to look at today are our fantastic, magnificent potion bottles.
So Camilla, being in education ourselves for many years, obviously these are a great resource and so beautiful, but being in the team that developed them, can you tell us more about why they were developed?
Well, children are magpies. They strive to look at things that are exciting, that promote that curiosity for them. And us as adults can remember when we were young children making our own little potions using mums or grandparents' old perfume bottles. So it's about developing a resource that was really going to engage with those children, that was really going to ignite that curiosity that they'll all have. So the team have developed these glass-like looking potion bottles that have these beautiful faceted tops to engage children in that natural curiosity, but safe. It's not about having those glass bottles around that can easily break. It's actually about having something that can be super versatile, but really super safe for those children as well. The great thing about our collection of potion bottles is that there are so many variations of it. So you've got our maths measuring bottles, which come in 2 different sizes and different colours as well. So the children can actually see and have a look at the different mathematical properties that are on the side, looking at different shapes and sizes. We have giant potion bottles which have been beautifully crafted with little facets in, and we've got our collection of smaller potion bottles that have got those beautiful rainbow colours. And obviously when the children are exploring them in different types of messy play or water, all those different colours will radiate with the use of sunshine and light.
Totally appealing to children, and we just want to touch them and play with them and obviously do lots of learning from them. So in my experience, we get lots of children who just want to scoop and pour from the earliest age. Then we move on to starting to fill them and seeing, do they hold the same amount? How much can I get in? Can I fill this one from this one? The other ways I've used them is, and I'm sure many of people in our audience will have used things like this and have memories of this, is as a child going and picking the petals and putting them in and collecting them, and then filling it with water and making those fragrant potions or perfumes. And obviously when they're making those potions, they're being scientists, they're making concoctions and they're experimenting to see what happens. And I can remember once I was at a setting and they were making potions and they were collecting the things, and then this one little boy decided to wander off and we all thought he'd lost interest. But obviously as practitioners it's good to stand back sometimes and see where his learning takes him. And he went off to a nearby bush and he started collecting twigs. And he had thick ones and they weren't good enough, so he got some thinner ones. And I was really fascinated by this little boy's learning, like what is he going to do with his potion bottles? And basically he got these small twigs and he lined them up, so he was using mathematical development. And at this point I thought it had gone away from the potion bottle. And as he lined them up, they were all different sizes, so he was using his mathematical skills and his scissor skills to cut them all to the same length, but he was cutting them at the side of the bottle. So again, I'm still watching him, and he then lifted them up and fitted them all inside. At this point his face lit up and I just saw the delight on this child's face, and I was like, what's he going to do with his potion bottle next? And he ran over to the mud kitchen where they'd set up this roadside cafe, and they were making bacon sandwiches and through mud pies and things. And he proudly put it on the mud kitchen and he said, well, we won't have any smells from the bacon sandwiches now because that'll make a nice smell. And he'd used his experiences from home to make a reed diffuser to get rid of the bacon smell. And I just thought this was ingenious because this child had used his experiences from home, he'd made those links, he'd gone through an all planning and design process to make his very own reed diffuser. And obviously then it led on to those interactions and conversations like, oh, can we smell? through the twigs, and you realised you couldn't. So you're like, well, what could I use then? And it just led to that whole exploration, investigation and discovery. So from a simple potion bottle, we went through, creativity. It was innovative. He used his mathematical skills, and I was just absolutely blown away by how this one potion bottle and a simple potion making experience transformed into something totally different.
I think that's what is so incredible about these potion bottles, that they are so versatile, and using them alongside other fantastic resources like pestle and mortar and scissors and things, children are learning about that irreversible change, they're working on those fine motor skills. Everything that we've done to create these with our amazing team has been thinking about the ways in which children can use different materials, that with the bigger ones they can fit bigger items in, but with the smaller bottles, actually there's a smaller amount that they can fit inside of it. It's the durability of all of the collection of potion bottles that I think is incredible to have as a practitioner. And working in nurseries together, we both know how important it is to have a piece of equipment that's going to last, and it's going to be your essential item to have, that the children will come back to time and time again. And they're easily cleaned, easily washed, easily put away and stored. And it just aids those children in all of that development every single time they go outside, because every time they'll go outside, it's a completely new adventure.
Definitely. And another way that leads on to the versatility is I went to one setting and there was a little boy who found it difficult to regulate. So he got quite attached to a certain colour potion bottle. And he was sat on the steps outside in the gravel with his practitioner, and he was just getting the pebbles one by one and dropping them into the potion bottle. And it just calmed him. So being outside, doing something with a familiar object that he really enjoyed, just really calmed him down and got him ready for the next stage of learning.
Having these as that essential part of your outdoor environment, it really helps those children to embrace nature. It's not taking the nature away from it. Actually, it's getting them and encouraging them to scavenge and find out these particular resources that they're bringing in, putting it together, to think about those different ways of learning new vocabulary, learning about that irreversible change, communicating with their friends and the practitioners and the teachers all around them to talk about what it is that they found, or what they've discovered, or what they've created.
And going on from the imagination sort of aspect and creativity, if they've done a bit of mark making and made that map and they insert it into the bottle and float it on the water to see who can find that message, or what story can we weave around a potion bottle? Are we going to be wizards, witches? Are we going to be, in laboratories making fantastic concoctions? And I think the other thing that appeals to me about these potion bottles is there's all that child-led, playful fascinations. But once we watch those children and we know that they're absolutely fascinated and love these things, we can then move it on to more specific learning. So if I know that they love these potion bottles, I then can start to weave the mathematical development in and put numbers on. So those children who like filling them, they then start to fill them with the amounts that's on the bottle. So I just think there's just so many things you can do with them. So I must have in many settings.
These are our messy metal creative tubs, and these have been specifically developed for little hands. We know that lots of settings, especially ones that we've worked in the past, have got all sorts of different metal tubs and buckets for children to explore. But these ones have been specifically developed to make sure that there's no scratching, no sharp metal at all is shown on any of these, which makes life so much easier for practitioners when doing risk assessments, because there's nothing to have to worry about of the extra dangers of using items that aren't specifically made for children but are made for the garden or outdoor environment. And these have been specifically developed to think about how children interact with them and to make sure that everything is as safe as possible, so when they're exploring there's no damages.
From a physical development point of view, they're really good for developing the grip. So children might grip them by the handles, they might grip them by the actual body of the container, and obviously they start to work out the mathematical concepts, so they can fill them with sand, water, which is the heaviest, which is the lightest. I've also seen some children who just like nesting them and seeing which ones will fit in which, and then taking them out. It's a bit like when you get a younger child emptying the cupboard. They just like it for the sake of emptying and filling it again.
For us, physical development is obviously one of the key prime areas for the early years. So for us, when we're developing our resources, it's really key to think about the ways in which the children will use them. And as you've mentioned with the handles, we've made sure that our handles are strong, that are durable, that won't snap off very, very quickly, because these won't rust like other types of tubs or bowls that you might get from somewhere else, which makes it easier for the children to continue playing with these and having these as those essential pieces of kit for your outdoor environment.
Moving on to those other areas of learning as well, we all know that children love to wash things. So, these are great for outdoors, to take the baby outside or to put the cars in. And I've seen children dunking the washing in and scrubbing it and really, acting out those familiar routines.
Another great feature about all these creative tubs is that they can all nestle inside of each other. All the different ones that we've developed have been made so they can nest inside of each other. And with all of our fantastic mud kitchens that we've also developed, it means for easy access but easy storage for children as well, making it far easier for the children and for practitioners.
Resources such as these really lend themselves to that language. Again, we've got that language of maths, as we've discussed, but we've also got that language of size. We've got prepositional language, putting things inside, and can we put things on top of if we've made a cake. And also it leads to that storytelling. So for example, when we're teaching fairy tales, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, which one would be Daddy's bowl with his porridge in, which would be Baby Bear's bowl. So again, it's looking at all those opportunities to weave storytelling in, that language, that vocabulary, so we can extend it for children.
These tubs are such a versatile resource for children to explore. Alongside a mud kitchen, separate to a mud kitchen, both indoors and outdoors, it's a great way for children to explore key themes for their learning. These creative crates have been developed by our fantastic team because for a long period of time, a lot of settings were using milk crates straight off the back of a milk lorry, and these aren't safe for little ones at all. They're easily broken and children on a daily basis get hurt by them. So our team worked really hard together to create something that was more than a milk crate, that it could still be used in all those fantastic ways and be such a nice open-ended resource. But ours that we've developed is made from recycled plastic. We've made it that it's super durable, it can be left outside, it can be stood on and the children won't fall through it. And there are little parts and little holes to it where children can do their weaving through it. And there's little sections here where actually the crates can stack safely on top of each other, which means that they won't be toppled over as easily as normal milk crates. We've also got certain sections that have been cut out to make way for using channeling that we also use within the areas.
And they're exactly the things I've seen going around settings and when I've used them myself. So these crates, a simple crate can become so many things. The crates are such a versatile resource, and we can come up with many ideas about how to use them, but children absolutely blow me away by the different things they think of too. So one of the ways that I've seen the crates used is a forest school decided to teach independence to their children, that they would put the children's belongings in, like the wellies, the things they would need. It might put some cups in for beside the fire pit, and they each carried their crate down. The beauty of this crate is once you've opened it up and taken the things out, they flipped it over and it became their personal seat. So they had their own little seat. Some children even customised their own seat by doing the weaving, putting feathers in it, twigs, leaves, whatever they could find. It also became a little bit of a tool for that independence and for children to take that little bit of a risk, which obviously we need to risk assess, but it became that little stool that they could use to reach that tree or that branch that was just out of reach. The other thing they did was tip them up and use them as stepping stones. So for some children, they put them fairly close together and they were developing all those motor skills But for some children, they wanted the element of risk, so they used the mathematical knowledge to decide how wide the stride were, and just to see if they could overstretch that a little bit more to get to the next crate.
That's what's really fantastic about our crates. You know, you can use them as an individual child, you can use them in mass collaborative play. It can be from one thing to 1,000 things, and especially in the outdoor environment, it really enhances all those natural things that you've already got out there that children are going to go off and explore and gather themselves. Even if they're using the crate itself to gather them with, it's so open-ended.
And as you said earlier, the clever cutout, which is the handle, but also where we can fit that channel in to make a water channeling course. So again, we're teaching children to be innovators, scientists. We're teaching them to be curious, to see things differently and to think out of the box, which we all know, children of the future are going to need. For our younger children, some might just like filling them and transporting things around that early schematic behaviour. And then other children might want to sit in them. For some children, they'll just sit in it and go to faraway places, and they'll make a train or a car. Whilst others, they will construct with them, build castles, use it with their tarpaulin, pegs, and because they are sturdy with this ridge, so that they won't fall over, they can all collaborate and work together to create the most amazing constructions.
One of the great additions to our crates that we've got are the additional toppers that we've got. So we have ones that children can do sorting and sequencing, ones with sinks so that children can maybe have the outdoor role play or sand and water, or even the smaller mud kitchen, and another one that we can use for mark making.
And definitely for some settings, they're blessed with space. Others, unfortunately, have less space. So again, it's that alternative where we can provide those mud kitchens on a smaller scale, and also for a smaller budget, which we all know is very important.
One of the other reasons we've developed these toppers and lids is to really help those children with their independence, and making sure that the lids that fit inside don't fall out, that actually the children can place them on themselves, so if they have their selection, they can choose which one they want it to be for that day.
And what a great way to store your resources at the end of the day as well. So not only a resource that the children can use in the learning, but something where we can put our resources in at the end of the day, put the topper on, stack them, and ready to go the next day. This sand and water eco kit is obviously very different to many of the things we see out there. Can you tell me why you developed it in this way?
So the team developed this fantastic sand and water kit based on children's fine motor and gross motor skills. So a lot of the sand and water resources we see out there often encourage children to do some pouring and filling, but this one, we really thought about the different ways in which children need to work on their wrist movements and their shoulder movements and their elbow movements, and it's really about encouraging those children to practice those skills whilst exploring all the sand and water activities they'll have out. So this is an amazing kit that really strips back what children need to learn to make it such an essential piece to have within every setting. It's also a collection that we've worked on to have a bioplastic material used for. We've really thought about the colours that children don't want to feel overstimulated when they're exploring. We want them to be really engaged with the activity and to focus on what they're doing, focus on those skills, rather than those bright colours they might be already focused on with other things. So this is a great resource that ties in together beautiful bioplastics, again with our important eco stands, with core key early learning skills alongside really nice calming colours.
One of the things that I think many children find fascinating with this sand and water eco kit is you've got the sieves as usual, so they can sieve the sand or the soil, because I think the other thing is we can use it with lots of different materials, but also you can construct with it, so it all fits nicely together. And working with different settings, just this spinning bit on the top created great fascination with a group of children I worked with. So they were pouring water and watching it drip. Then one child had the idea to spin it a little bit, and then they decided to put some sand on. And as you spin it a bit quicker, the materials arc round. So without me even prompting them really, they started to recognise the patterns on the floor that it was creating. So they started spinning faster and sprinkling the sand and water to see if they could make the sprinkling and the pattern go further on the floor. One child rushed off to get some chalk to see where it was going, so they marked the area. So they were looking at speed, they were looking at all those scientific concepts, which are quite complex. They were experiencing them through the play. As you can see, even I like spinning it. And again, we've got lots of patterns, haven't we? So you could roll it in the sand sideways and get the texture of the side of this container. We've got the bumps on this side, and we've got the holes. So we've got lots of different patterns, lots of different language. So when we're having those really important interactions with the children, we've got lots we can discuss and talk about and notice and recognise.
One of the reasons that we use this biomaterial with all these beautiful little flecks in is because it is suitable for it to live outside, and it will stay safe, and the colours won't fade or change, and it's durable enough to be kept as a continuous provision for outdoors. All the pieces here can be really nicely, easily stored together. The buckets, they nest inside of each other, the spoons nest inside of each other, and it makes it a really nice piece of equipment to be able to quickly store away, giving the children that independence to tidy their things away as well. So these are our easy detectors, and these have been developed really thinking about how children are going to be exploring those nice scientific properties. So these have been developed to really think about how children are going to hold them, thinking about where the button is pressed on them as well, how easy it is for those children to be able to press them on and off. These are also rechargeable, so they come with a great docking station, which makes it so much easier for items not to be lost. It means that children can come and put them back in their home, and the practitioner or the teacher is able to take the plug out, so they can leave it really nice and safe on the side for the children to keep coming backwards and forwards to. And then at the end of the day, they can be popped on charge, ready for the next session.
Metal detectors obviously are a great resource for curiosity. We all like to find those hidden things. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think about children with metal detectors is going on those treasure hunts. But what's great is we can go on those treasure hunts to find that hidden treasure. And it might be, again, we weave those stories of, are we pirates? Are we on the beach looking for lost coins that have been lost years ago? But there's that subtle use of technology with them too. So in early years, obviously we want children to use technology but without screens and things, and I think this is the ideal way to do that. The way I've seen them being used is they did the treasure, and not all the treasure was metallic, so they got little pieces of foil, tin foil, and they placed it on the back and buried the treasure.
I think these easy detectors are an absolute essential for most settings to have, because exactly how you said, we want those children to make their own discoveries and explore, and if you're almost tricking them into looking at what different materials they might look metal but actually aren't, it's getting them to engage with properties and materials and really thinking about those early scientific properties that we as adults can know quite well.
As practitioners and teachers, we're all aware of sustainability for the future as well. So, recycling, looking at those properties of materials that you've just talked about is really important. So what a great way to have those really important conversations with our younger learners. One setting that I've worked with also use them to set up their own airport security. So some children have never been abroad with COVID and things, so it gave us those opportunities to talk about different places that we can visit. And those children who are going on holiday, these big scary metal detectors in airports, it can be quite daunting. So we acted it out before they went.
I think that's something that's so amazing about this resource, is that it could be the initial start of trying to explore what's metal, what isn't, but it's that bridge into furthering knowledge in another area, getting children to think beyond just what they're explicitly learning about materials and properties. It can extend so much further.